Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. So before we start, let us first give thanks. Hallelu et Adonai, kol goim, shabechu kol haomim, ki gavar alenu chasdo ve'emet Adonai le'olam hallelujah. This Torah teaching is dedicated to the safety and security of the soldiers, to the 12 soldiers who lost their lives over the last few days from Shabbat to Sunday. Hashem Yikom Damam, and to the safe return of the hostages. So this is the final chapter of the Golden Calf. We're in chapter 45e, and this one is called Coming Down the Mountain. So again, I hope you watched all of these in order. You'll get a much better understanding. Last week, we discussed the 5 angels of destruction that were sent out by God to completely destroy Israel. This week, we're going to discuss how Moses handles them. Now, it's important to note that what is punishment and what is correction. Fact of the matter is, they're actually one and the same, okay? But only when it comes to Israel. As for the nations who have tried to destroy Israel, there is no correction for them. They're straight up going to be punished. But as far as Israel is concerned, though it may seem like a punishment, God acts with us always in a merciful way, as it says in the Zohar that we don't even receive 10% of what is actually coming to us. Everything that happens to us is less than 10% of the judgment that actually fits the crime, right? Case in point, here we're going to get into some stuff October 7th, okay? First, we lost almost 1,500 people that day, 1,400 and change. Again, they're still finding bodies right now. They're still identifying bodies 8 months later. Again, this is a tragedy by any means. Of course, we're still suffering from it. Soldiers are dying because of it. No doubt, no question. However, we also discussed that this was a great mercy from God. And I will explain this again. Spiritually speaking, the south of Israel, where this all took place, is actually the right side of the throne of God, right? If you think of the temple, where's the temple facing? The temple faces to the east, right? So the throne of God is sitting in the temple facing to the east, the Holy of Holies, right? To the right side of this throne, you would have the south of Israel. Also, who dwelt in the south? In Beersheba and Hebron, this was Abraham, of course, the manifestation of mercy in this world. And so, if it does take place in his domain, then it is mercy for sure. Bringing forth the second point, which is common sense, from what you can see on the street. Before October 7th, the country was so divided that when they interviewed hundreds of Hamas prisoners, they all said the same thing, which is that they saw the division in our country and it emboldened them to make a move specifically at that time. Because while we were focused on fighting one another, we let our guard down. This is also spiritually speaking. We know this, right? What happened as a result, but we're not even talking spiritually. We're talking about, I don't believe in God, nothing, eyes on the ground. Sure, all this stuff is documented. You could YouTube and Google these videos. So what happened as a result? We unified ever so quickly, right? So many people did tshuva. And the most sought after item in Israel was what? Tzitzit. Hundreds of thousands of people were not hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people were making now hundreds of thousands of pairs of tzitziot. People all over Israel, secular and Orthodox alike, were making tzitzit for the soldiers to wear in Gaza, like a physical yet spiritual body armor. There was no division at that point. There was nothing but love and unity throughout the country. Just love, right? But that could not fly for the powers that be, the ones who not only knew of this attack, but who helped to plan it as well, right? Oh, the security cameras just happened to go out an hour before this thing happened. And when it was told to the higher-ups, they said, meh, really? No. That doesn't just happen. So what happened next? They made sure that all eyes were off God and onto the false gods of this world, as the great United States all of a sudden mobilized their 6th or 7th fleet from Italy, just so happened to be the next day, from Italy to stand on our shores as a sign of strength. then the majority here, those who, again, would not look to God afterwards, because everybody that was looking to God beforehand continued to look to God. But those that were swayed a bit, the majority of them were like, oh, whoa, hold on. Let me get back to reality. This is what real strength looks like. So the majority here, then they were looking to that fool Biden over there to save us, taking our eyes off God. That's how it happened, and that's how it started. And from that point, the division started to sow its evil roots once again. Before you know it, slowly but surely, that's what happened. Today, they are protesting in the same way on Shabbat by design, and it doesn't matter what it is that they're protesting. Before is the justice reform thing. Then it's like return the hostages. And who doesn't want the hostages to return? You don't have to protest to return the hostages, right? You made this happen. Go undo it. Again, who are we fighting here, right? Then it's draft the Haredim. Then it's get them out of the government. Then it's get him in jail. There's always a reason to protest. The bottom line is they are protesting. These protests are just designed to cause chaos. No change, just chaos, right? There's no end goal for this as far as they're concerned, but it's all part of their plan, which is really part of God's plan. So the fact that they're doing it, it brings us right back to where we were before. Doesn't matter, let's just protest for whatever. Which brings me to the third point. It was the New York Times, of all places, I believe, right? The New York Times or the Washington Post, extreme left-wing newspaper, that released a beautiful, documented brief detailing the plans of Hamas on that day. A beautiful binder. You could buy it in the store, right? Not our people, because that would make Israel look bad. We weren't the ones that put it out, which is why, surprise, surprise, it was, the New York Times. Hamas planned that day to kill not 1,500 as they did, but to kill between 150 and 250,000 people. That was their plan. Their plan was, as we know already months before the attack, we knew this months before the attack, was to cut through the southern part of Israel, from Gaza down to Beersheba, all the southern towns, moving even up to Ashdod and Ashkelon, even to Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem, all the way to the Jordan River, right? There's your river to the sea for all the ignorants out there who have no idea what they're chanting. At that time, while this would be taking place and everybody would be focusing on the south, Hezbollah from the north would unleash their rockets simultaneously, overwhelming our Iron Dome system to the point of complete ammunition depletion within a few short hours. There are, the silly little rockets, and then what comes next? After they fired tens of thousands of these, we would obviously not be able to keep up, not to mention that every rocket costs a fortune from the Iron Dome. There we go. We're done within a few short hours. We're out of ammo. Then what comes? Then they would fire their ground-to-ground missiles, right? Specifically targeted, which can blow up entire buildings, and they have tens of thousands of those. But that's not all, okay? This was supposed to be a three-front attack. While all this is taking place in the south and in the north, the around 750,000 Arabs living in Judea and in Samaria, who have been arming themselves for years, would invade the bordering towns and villages throughout the heart of the country. You have Israeli towns who are just right across the border. What do you think? They heard them drilling underneath. For months, our government wouldn't say anything about it until people in their homes started filming this. Then they released it. Then the government said, yes, they are likely digging tunnels underneath. But you don't hear about this anymore, right? As far as them arming themselves, when they come into the borders of Israel, because they all work here, we give them their parnasa. What do? They actually hide guns and ammo in children's playgrounds. The police are finding them with dogs, digging up plants underneath swing sets and whatnot. It's insane what is going on here and what they actually are not telling people. But so this was supposed to happen from the south, then from the north, and from the center all at once, right? This means there's no army, like there was anyway, no police, and there's no one that is coming to save you. We already saw no army on October 7th, so let's be real here. Showing up 8 to 12 hours later, when it's no more than a 2-hour drive from anywhere in the country, is no excuse. But like we said, those who planned this. Until this day, no one is giving answers. Now, I saw, where were we? We were in Ra'anana at this time. We were at my parents' house for Simchat Torah. And as we're walking home from synagogue in the morning, when we heard everything that's going on, we see soldiers by their own, what should we say? Their own inspiration. They would get in the cars, they would put on their uniforms. You see like guys with big yarmulkes and payas and tzitzit. The guy comes, his wife with the big head covering, she gets in the car on Shabbat, emergency. He gets in the passenger side and they're just driving. She's going to go drop him off at Gaza. They weren't driving to their bases because they didn't get calls. They were all driving down to the south. People that actually got calls, they would drive down to the south, but still there was no army, there was no air force. It's a kind of a running joke, right? The people that are running this campaign are the ones that made this happen. So no answers, but God sees all. The point that I'm trying to make is that if the Gazans would have just killed the Jews, right, and advanced in a military fashion, they would have achieved their goals and the rest of the country would have been burnt. Very different story that would have come to everybody's home over here. No doubt. Right across the way, where we live right now, where I'm filming this right now in Jerusalem, is between two very dangerous Arab towns. Just across the highway there, just across the highway there. I could see them from my window. They're really not that far. They're like 500 meters away, okay? So all this could happen at any point in time. And that was what their plan was actually on that day. So if they would have done what a regular army did, they would have achieved their goals, right? But since they acted in such a cruel and inhuman fashion, not like in times of war, or the hell that they crawled out of, they took the time to rape and to pillage and to torture in the most creative ways that they forgot about their objective. This, regardless of how you look at it, this is a mercy considering what was. So despite the atrocities committed, the lives lost, the worlds destroyed, what we experienced on October 7th was a great mercy from God, which does not even account to 1% of what we had coming to us, considering what was done in Tel Aviv on Yom Kippur and in the courts the following week. What was done here, that was something, that was that moment where you could, okay, God unleashes the 5 angels of destruction. How could you do something like this on the holiest day? So we stepped out of line. We were the ones who breached that gap in the fence, and our enemies took full advantage. So I speak of the instigators within our ranks and those all around us. And all this was done in order to return us. So we should not stray too far. This was all planned by God. Some learned. Unfortunately, most did not. So are we expecting the next hit to be on a grander scale? Sadly, we are. Until we learn. This is what it is. Psalms 23:4 famously reads, "Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." The rod and the staff, right? From Psalms 23. The rod and the staff, it's the same stick, the same tool, manifested differently. In this case, Hamas was used as a rod. Proverbs 13:24. He who holds his rod hates his son. Spare thy rod, hate thy child. Chosech shivto soneh bno. David said, your rod and your staff, they comfort me, right? If we can't see this, then we are blind. And yet David, the Lord's eternal anointed, called it a comfort. Something to think about. Israel, just like the Erev Rav within our ranks, caused this mess that we are in today. They also caused Israel to sin with the golden calf, as 3,000 were killed. Those who kissed the idol with all their hearts. Meaning, their hearts were not 100% with God. It's funny because like the number 3,000 is actually significant. There were 3,000 insurgents. Maybe only half of them were Hamas. The rest were Gazans with flip-flops and shorts coming to rape and to pillage. All this is on camera. The poor Gazans that we're giving aid to right now, who still raped and murdered and pillaged our people even after they were taken there. So what are you going to do? You see where this is going. So anybody that's on their side is against Israel, is against God. But so 3,000 over there. Also, we have Samson. That's also a very interesting thing. So Samson, he was, it says how like the Philistines, where did they live? In Gaza, in Ashdod, and in Ashkelon, specifically in Gaza, Azza. They lived there. They were a thorn in the side to Israel. God gave Samson the strength to be a thorn in the side to the Philistines. And how many Philistines did Samson kill in his final act, right? Where he dropped down the temple where they were at? He killed 3,000 Philistines. All these things are related. Anyway, and going where they're going then, and where we're going now, right now, this couldn't be. They could not be a part of Israel. Anybody that orchestrated this from within and out, obviously. Now we know that God sent forth the angels of destruction to do their job, meaning we totally had it coming, but it was Moses who stood in the gap, and he turned it around, thereby only 3,000 were killed instead of every last one of us, right? The golden calf, God wanted to take out Israel completely, but it was only 3,000. That was a mercy. So, how do we do it? From our text. And the Holy One, blessed be He, sent forth 5 angels of destruction to destroy Israel, and they were Ketzif, Af, Chema, Mashchit, Charon. And Moses heard this. Dun dun. Where did he hear this from? Directly from God in Exodus 32, 9-10. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, they are stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone, and my anger will be kindled against them, so that I will annihilate them, and I will make you into a great nation. This is just one of many times that God is going to tell Moses, they're all gone, I'm starting with you. Cool? What does it say in Hebrew? Ve'ata hanichali vaichar api. Here's Charon, here's Af, by him, against them, ve'achlam, annihilate them. David writes of these events that took place in Psalm 7:7. Arise, O Lord, with your wrath. Kuma Adonai be'apecha. Take this Charon Af, not against Israel, but that you've been holding it back against the nations, those that try to destroy Israel. Upon my adversaries, and awaken for me the judgment that you commanded, said David. And Moses went towards, or called upon, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So when this happened and he saw that these 5 angels were coming out, that's when he said he called upon Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What does this mean? The entire transaction that took place was while Moses was still in the spirit world. None of these happenings are physical. Remember, it says the whole mountain was engulfed on fire, which means the whole mountain. It said, no one should get near the mountain, not man, not beast. Anybody that comes near the mountain is dead, which means the whole mountain became fire, which means spiritual, okay? Only if you are a spiritual being could you touch that, or a super holy being, which means you can switch through realms, and that was Moses. He was the only one that could do this. So when we read that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our text refers to their attributes, which is mercy for Abraham, judgment for Isaac, and splendor for Jacob. Our sages say that the reason Moses called to them was because he saw that these attributes and Israel were exposed to these 5 angels of destruction who were going to do their job. So you had 5 angels of destruction through the patriarchs, right? You need to balance these things out. But when Moses speaks to them, it is to the patriarchs who are also these attributes manifest in this world. So I actually spoke to them, right? Again, in the spirit realm. And Moses said to them, if you are the sons of the world to come, imatem bnei olam haba, come and stand before me in this hour, for your sons have been given over like sheep to the slaughter, right? Why did he speak to them like this? Let's first see. The Radal says that the language here is the same as in Jeremiah 12:3. But you, O Lord, have known me. You see me and you try my heart with you. Draw them out like sheep to the slaughter and prepare them for the day of slaughter. Katzon lativcha. So this is the katzon lativcha is the language that Moses used over here to the patriarchs. In other words, your children are now done. And the 3 patriarchs then stood before him. You have our attention. One does not simply, One does not simply summon Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? However, God always leaves room for reason and negotiations. Everything is done for that reason, right? Our sages surely remember the promise that God made to them. And yet now, should God indeed annihilate Israel, his promise would be broken. So this was never going to happen, okay? But it could have, right? If it was not for Moses, but that's why Moses was strategically placed. So what this shows us is no matter what happens, no matter what Israel did, there will always be a way out. In other words, if we don't see the way out, God is going to close everything around us, and what we have to do is pay attention for that way out in our day-to-day lives and how to navigate the end times that we are currently in. Everything will be falling. God takes away, say, okay, you can't trust the government. That was very clear with COVID. Everything's coming out right now. You can't trust the army. That is very clear since October 7th. You cannot trust the police. Same thing, right? And so on and so forth. You can't trust anything. In other words, there's a wall here, there's a wall there, there's a wall there. Where does God want us to go? We're going to see that there are going to be walls all around us. There's nowhere to go except for, exactly, up. Ein al mi lishen. No one to rely upon, only in our Heavenly Father. So, slowly but surely, this is happening exactly as it is written. That's why we do not fret. We can get upset, we can get angry, but again, God is doing this. Okay, so like we said, this is what it shows us. But we have an entire series backing up the claims that just like the Exodus from Egypt, the final redemption will also constitute only 20% of Israel. You have to remember these things. And so the three patriarchs then stood before him. Moses then spoke before God, saying, Master of all the worlds, Ribon kol olamim, this is not what you swore to these, to multiply their seed like the stars in the heavens, as said in Exodus 32:13. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your very self, and to whom you said, I will multiply your seed like the stars of the heavens, and all this land which I said that I would give to your seed, they shall keep it as their possession forever. God said this, right? If he annihilates them, he breaks their word. So this cannot happen. What, do you think God didn't know that Moses was going to save this? He might have been the only one that could have brought this before God. And by the merit of the three patriarchs, 3 angels were halted from coming to Israel, and they were Ketzef, Af, and Chema, while 2 others remain. Now, before we continue, you should know that these 5 angels of destruction were not destroyed themselves, right? But only halted for that moment. God does not destroy spiritual beings, let alone his own creation, who are only doing the very job that he created them to do. Right? You can't be angry at Satan if Satan does his job. God sends him out to do his job. And we can see this in Parashat Korach from the book of Numbers 17. Moses said to Aaron, take a censer and put fire from the altar top into it and put in it incense. Then take it quickly to the congregation and atone for them, for wrath has gone forth from the Lord, and a plague has begun. What does it say in Hebrew? HaKetzif. Here's one of the angels of destruction. Ketzif, ki yatzak ketzif milifnei Hashem. From before the Lord. What, the Ketzif on his own right is going to go out and start killing Israel? No, God said, go do what needs to be done. Hechel hanagif, right? And the plague has begun. It doesn't say that God said to Moses, but rather Moses said to Aaron, right? How the verse starts. Moses then said to Aaron. Why? How? Because Moses had encountered the angel of destruction, Ketzif, one of the 5 angels, when he was on his way coming down the mountain. And how did Moses know how to counter Ketzif? Angels of destruction have a weakness, and that is incense. Okay? It starts from the Satan himself and all his legions over there. So we get this from many midrashim, but one in particular is called Ma'ayan HaChochma, the spring of wisdom. Yeah, there it is. Ma'ayan HaChochma. Now, this is a short book, scroll, that was written by the Archangel Michael, who then gave it to another angel who we will not name. You're not supposed to say names of angels unless they're unless you could name people after them. That's why Michael and Gabriel and Raphael, these are names that you can say because people are named after them. But these other angels, you don't name people after them. They're not common names, so you don't say their names, because if you do, again, you are invoking them and they will destroy you. Okay? None of us today are holy enough that we can call out to angels. So the archangel Michael gave this to another angel, who we will not mention, who then gave it to Moses, and within it there's many secrets of the universe. Okay? The book then made its way to David and bestowed this supernal wisdom upon him. This book is not written in English, okay, so you're not going to find it. And even if it were, it's not like you can just read the words and get smart. Things don't work like that. The book gives in great detail everything that Moses had encountered, right? From the moment that he entered into the dark cloud from the mountain and ascended to the heavens to receive the Torah. So all this was recorded by Michael. Every angel he faced and had to best to get him one step closer to the Torah. In the end, though, Moses went where no other created being, including all the angels, had ever gone before, and that is to the innermost most chamber of the Holy One, blessed be He. Even the angels themselves wait outside. That's why they say, Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Blessed is the Lord our God from His place. Where is this place? We don't know, because He is everywhere. But there is a place that is reserved, that is private. That is where Moses went, and no other created being ever went there. When Moses left, all the heavenly hosts waited outside in silence and in awe at this mortal man. Again, it's longer than that. There's conversations. God told him how to get, how to make the angels test him, and then he tested the angels, and so on. All right. So I'm going to just translate parts of the last paragraph of the book, so you get the point. I translate like paraphrase, okay? The Holy One, blessed be He, taught Moses all the Torah in 40 days. And when he came to descend and saw the might and fright of the legions and myriads of angels, he was terrified by the sight and forgot all the Torah. Think about it for a second. He's there within this innermost sanctum for 40 days receiving the Torah. Then he leaves, coming to descend, and he opens the door, let's say, metaphorically speaking. And there all the hosts of heaven are silent, just looking at this being who was flesh and blood, and he just received the Torah. So Moses saw this, like all of them, in whatever spiritual form they were at, he saw them. So the Holy and Blessed be He taught Moses all the Torah in 40 days. And then when he came out, this is what he saw. And he was so terrified that fright made him forget the Torah. Then God called another angel, who we will not be naming, who is called also the minister of Torah, who reinstated what Moses had lost in a beautiful way. All the ministering angels then came to love Moses. So in other words, it said be-seder aruch, like a shulchan aruch, everything according to its own category, one mitzvah leading into the next, beautifully, that Moses perfectly understood it. He didn't lose anything, right? And then when all the angels actually witnessed this, right? It wasn't just like, okay, what are they doing behind the door? They actually saw that he was able to receive all the secrets and all the knowledge in the universe, something that they themselves could not do. Then it said, then they came to love Moses when they saw, wow. And each one gave him a gift. Each angel in heaven gave Moses a gift, a remedy, a secret of the names that emanate from every single chapter in the Torah. And all their uses, in other words, every chapter, every sentence, every letter has a different meaning, and these are all remedies. What? Because again, we're in a world that is sick, death, right? We are all dying the moment that we're born from the time of Adam. This is to remedy that, and it's all within the Torah. And they showed him what it is and how to use it, as written in Psalm 68:19. You ascended on high. You took captives. You took gifts to be among men, and also rebellious ones for Yah, God, to dwell. Lishkon Yah Elohim. This is Moses. And even the angel of death gave Moses a gift, as it is written in Numbers 17:12, the next verse after what we just read before. Aaron took it just as Moses had said, and he ran into the midst of the assembly, and behold, the plague had begun among the people. He placed the incense in it and atoned for the people. And these are the glorious uses that the angels gave to Moses by the ministering angel of the Torah, who will not be named, and by Metatron, the angel of the panim, or rather interior. Like we said, a face in Hebrew is called panim. Inside is called pnim. Exactly the same spelling. It is the same word. What does this show us? That our face is who we truly are inside. So the minister of interior is called Sar HaPnim, but he's referred to as Sar HaPanim. The face, external, internal, they are one and the same when it comes to truth. Who then gave it to Eleazar, and Eleazar to Pinchas his son, who is Elijah, the great and beloved priest of blessed memory. Amen. That's that, but we're not done with our story just yet, okay? So again, that's just a little part, the ending from that specific one. I got a lot of these things. If you guys are ever interested, maybe I'll do some things with that. All right, so Aaron still needed to deal with Ketzef, right? Ve'yatzak Ketzef lifnei Hashem. Ketzef came out from before God. In other words, God sent it, right? Ketzef, the angel of destruction, a powerful spiritual being invisible to the naked eye, only to be seen through the spiritual eyes of Moses and Aaron. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague ceased. Fortunately for us, we actually have the conversation between Aaron and Ketzef, courtesy of Rabbeinu Bachye, and it goes something like this, okay? From Numbers 17:11. Moses said to Aaron, take a censer and put fire from the altar atop it and put in incense. Then take it quickly to the congregation and atone for them. For wrath, for Ketzef has gone forth from the Lord, and the plague has begun, right? Okay, remember, it was Satan who told Moses how to diffuse all these angels of destruction. And we also know that you could not bring an offering up in Beit HaMikdash or in the Mishkan without the incense altar. The incense has to rise with the korban. Why? Think of it as like, what do you call it? The incense. What is Ketzef and what is Af, Charon Af? One of the angels of destruction. It is nose, flaring nostrils. What is incense? Where does it go? It goes up the nose, right? Yeah. Okay. So it was a sweet and savory smell before the Lord. We see this in when Noah gave his korban after the flood and everything, and then it said the wrath of God was kindled. It subsided. It's always because of these sweet savoring smells. So it's not just enough for the offering, for the animal upon the altar, but also you need the very specific spices which are listed, which we say every day, that allow them to go up there. Otherwise, the adversary and his accusers would then take a piece out of that and the offering would not be complete. But this kind of drops them out because this is their weakness. That's why it was Satan who gave this gift to Moses. And that is why Moses told Aaron, here's how you handle this right now. And that's exactly what happened. For wrath has gone forth from the Lord, the plague had commenced. There is an angel whose name is Ketzef, whose power is derived from the attribute of justice or judgment, miadin. Moses had become familiar. This is from Rabbeinu Bachye, by the way. Moses had become familiar with this angel at the time when the Torah had been given. This is the meaning of Midrash Tanchuma Kitisa on Exodus 32:2, where God said to Moses, go and descend, lech red, right? Due to the people having committed the sin of the golden calf, 5 angels of destruction had been unleashed. They were the angels known as Avchema Ketzef Hashmed Charon. Okay, they're slightly different than the other ones that we just read. As soon as Moses mentioned the 3 patriarchs, 3 of the angels were neutralized. This left 2 angels, Af and Chema, who were still active, pursuing their destructive activities. This is what Moses had in mind in Deuteronomy 9:19 when he said, Ki yagolti mipnei ha'af ve'hachema, for I was afraid of af and chema, the two remaining ones. We can't stop them, right? In answer to Moses' fear, God said to him, Moses was afraid, God said to him, you stand up against one of them, right? There's two, don't worry. You stand up against one of them. God meant that Moses' personal merit, it wasn't Moses going to physically fight a spiritual angel right now, but by his merit, it was sufficient to neutralize at least one of these two angels. Whereas I will deal with the second one, God said to Moses. This is the meaning of Psalm 7:7, Kuma Adonai be'apecha, arise, O Lord, against your af, against that angel of destruction. Moses himself was going to confront the other angel known as Chema. God was going for af, Moses for Chema. And this is the meaning of the verse in Psalms 106:23. He intended to destroy them, God intended to destroy Israel, and would have, were it not that Moses, his chosen one, stood before him in the breach to return his wrath from destroying. Lehashiv, to return chamato, lechema, mehashchit, from destroying. Wow. So what actually happened on the field? Aaron took it, just as Moses had said, and ran into the midst of the assembly, and behold, the plague had begun among the people. He placed the incense on it and atoned for the people. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague ceased. Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the plague was checked. Vayashev Aharon el Moshe, el petach oel moed, v'amagefa ne'etzra. Seeing that the Torah had already reported in verse 13 that as soon as Aaron put incense in the censer and stood between the living and the dead, the plague stopped. Why did the Torah have to repeat the fact that the plague had been arrested? The Torah teaches us here that Aaron forced the angel to come to the entrance of the tabernacle where Moses stood, which is where it exited from. God, right? In that case, Yatsa Ketzef Milifnei Hashem, Moses saw it coming out from within Ohel Moed, from within the tent of meeting, within the tabernacle. From where? From probably between the Holy of Holies over there. The angel said to Aaron, so here's what happened, okay? The angel said to Aaron, when they met on the battlefield over their battlefield, they're dying left and right all around. It wasn't, and he stood between the dead and the living. In other words, everybody over here died, and when he got here, they stopped dying, and everybody here was alive. They were mixed. It says they were mixed, the dead within the living, and what Ketzef was doing at that moment is that it was killing the living, and those that died, it would prevent them from going to their rightful place in the spirit realm. In other words, even in death, they were getting it, right? Okay, so he stopped that, he corrected this. So what happened? Aaron gets into the middle of the crowd, people are dying left and right, and there is this angel of destruction. The angel said to Aaron, "Get out of my way, God has sent me." To which Aaron replied, "And Moses sent me." The angel ridiculed this, saying, "You are but a messenger of flesh and blood, but I am a messenger of the Holy One, blessed be He." Aaron then said, "Tell you what, buddy, the Holy One, blessed be He, and Moses are at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Let us both go there and sort this out." The angel refused to comply with Aaron until he took hold of his loins and dragged him along. That's right. In other words, he said, why did the angel say, "Get out of my way"? He could have just gone through Aaron. No, because he had the incense, which means he was halted right there. Now come back to the tent of meeting. "No, I will not. I'm going to make you. I will drag you, kicking and screaming." And so he literally dragged the angel of destruction, kicking and screaming, back to the entrance of the tent of meeting. As our verse then says, Aaron returned to Moses at the tent of meeting, at the entrance of the tent of meeting, where God and Moses were, and the plague was checked. In other words, Aaron could only be there if Moses had sent him, and Moses could only have sent him if God told Moses, "Do this right now. We're done," right? That's right. Aaron grabbed the angel of destruction and dragged him against his will. And we see that the plague had ended, which means That this could have only happened, like we said, if God had allowed it, which he did, and this also proves that Moses did not go against the will of God. Of this instance, Moses alludes to in his last words in Deuteronomy 33, 10-11. They shall teach your ordinances to Jacob and your Torah to Israel. They shall place incense before you and burnt offerings upon your altar. May the Lord bless his army and favorably accept the work of his hands, strike the loins of those who rise up against him, grab him by the loins, and his enemies, so that they will not recover. If Aaron could stop one of the angels of destruction dead in his tracks, is it so difficult to believe that we cannot stop our enemies in the world today? We have to understand these things, especially now considering where we are at. Of course, if we are divided, we can't do any of these things. The point is for us to unify, right? That's why everything that's happening is to cause that division amongst Israel. So again, let's get back to our text. And by the merit of the three patriarchs, 3 angels were halted from coming to Israel, and they were Ketzef, Af, Chema, while 2 others remained. Which 2? Mashchit and Charon. He said, Master of the universe, by the merit of the oath that you made with them, stop Mashchit from Israel, as said in the verse, Ashel nishbata lahem bach, to whom you swore by your very self. As a result, Mashchit was stopped. Now again, I notice this time it's Mashchit, another time it's Chema. They're all interchangeable. They all really do the same thing, okay? Think of it like this. It's like they're five angels of destruction, okay? They make right? They're all together, they make that fist. So as a result, Mashchit was stopped, as said in Psalms 78:38. But he is merciful. He expiates iniquity and does not destroy. Vehu rachum, from our verse from last week. Vehu rachum yechaper avon velo yashchit. Stop the mashchit. And so God indeed stopped the mashchit. As we know, there are infinite ways to look at one verse. This is the wisdom of Torah. It never ends. And then it changes everything. But again, the meaning there holds true. Moses also gives this to us in the simple text in Deuteronomy 10:10. And I remained on the mountain like the first days, like the first 40 days and 40 nights. And the Lord hearkened to me also at that time. The Lord did not wish to destroy you. Vaishma Hashem Elai, gam bapam hahi, also on that time, lo ava Hashem hashchitecha, mashchit, the destroyer, this angel. So God stopped him. And again, like the verse we just read before, as David spoke of this incident in Psalms 106:23, if it wasn't for Moses, his chosen one stood before him in the breach to return what? Chamato mehashchit. So here we see his chema from lehashchit, from destruction. So even these are, again, they're also like action points themselves, not only names. Moses reminded God of his word from Exodus 32:12. Why should the Egyptians say he brought them out with evil intent to kill them in the mountains and to annihilate them from upon the face of the earth? Retreat from the heat of your anger and reconsider the evil intended for your people. Listen to the Hebrew. Forget the English. Lama yomru Mitzrayim le'emor bera'a hotziam la'arog otam ba'arim u'lechalotam me'al pnei adama. Shuv, return micharon apecha, charon and af. Like we said last time, they go together. Micharon apecha vehinachem el hara'a le'amecha. So Moses specifically prayed. He saw who was going out there. Please have mercy upon your people. Return charon and af. What did Moses do? He dug a massive hole in the ground, the size of a large house, in the plot of the sons of Gad. That way. And he buried Charon Af just as a man who is bound in prison. That's right. Moses buried an angel of destruction right over there. Now, yes, I know what you're thinking, and you are correct. This did not happen as Moses was descending from the mountain. This was later. But rather later, when they were on the east side of the Jordan, after Israel had already conquered that area. Interestingly enough, regarding this, the Radal brings the verse from Job 40:13. Hide them in the dust together, bind up their faces in a hidden place. I say interesting because if you read Job chapter 40, just go read Job chapter 40. It's not long. God speaks of this massive creature with great detail, after which he mentions Leviathan. Again, it's not Leviathan. They're two different creatures over here. And they're not the same, okay? So why did Moses bury Charon Af? Whenever Israel would sin, he would ascend, and whenever Israel would sin, Charon Af was buried, would start to ascend and open his mouth to bite with his breath and destroy Israel. This is the language, literally translating it literally translating from Hebrew. Let's explain. What does it mean to bite with his breath, right? To bite with his breath. The Hebrew says linshoch, to bite. Berucho. Rucho is his spirit, but ruach is also ruach, right? It's breath. Neshama, neshima, ruach, right? Remember, his name is Charon Af, which can literally be translated as wrath of the nose or the nostrils, like the flaring of the nostrils. Consider Genesis 2:7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust from the ground, and he breathed into his nostrils the soul of life. Vaipach be'apav nishmat chaim, right? Also Lamentations 4:20. Ruach apenu Mashiach Adonai. The breath of our nostrils, the Lord's anointed. So the breath, the ruach, comes through the nose, right? And also 2 Samuel 22:16. And the depths of the sea appeared, the foundations of the world were laid bare, by the rebuke of the Lord and the blast of the breath of his nostrils. Minishmat ruach apo. What does this show us? That God's breath is in all creation, from angels to man, beast, everything. God breathed the breath of life into creation. It is God's breath that makes the world exist. And so these angels of destruction, like every other heavenly host, is but an extension of God's will. This angel could not attack Israel unless God unleashed it. And when would God allow this to happen? Only when Israel would sin, as we read in our text. Whenever Israel would sin, he would ascend and open his mouth to bite with his breath and destroy Israel. In the Bahir, it is written that all the winds of the world are sealed up except that of the north. We actually discussed this, right? Which is open for good and evil, to come through. As we said, to the north, this is the side of judgment. The south is mercy. So the opposite is on the side of the left. That's a side of judgment. That is a north. If you are good, you have nothing to worry about. But if not, from Ezekiel 1:4, and I saw, and behold, a tempest was coming from the north, a huge cloud and a flaming fire with a brightness around it, and from its midst, it was like the color of the chashmal from the midst of the fire. Chashmal in modern day Hebrew is electricity, but this is not electricity. It's a different form of fire. Okay? So what does it say in Hebrew? Va'era, and I saw, behold, vehine, behold, ruach se'ara, a tempest, ba'a min hatzafon, coming from the north, a great cloud, anan gadol, ve'esh mitlakachat, a flaming fire. Esh mitlakachat, that's what we said, is translated as flaming fire. As the book says, there is no flaming fire but Charon Af. Okay? When we see Esh mitlakachat, this is Charon Af. Now remember, so wait a minute. So angels of destruction around when Yechezkel saw the incredible visions of the Merkava, you got to understand something. If we are good, angels of destruction cannot touch us. That's the point. This is what we have to prepare for the times to come. If we are found guilty, then of course it could touch us. Then these angels of destruction can hit us. But if we are not, they can't touch us. There's certain times that God tells us to take preventative measures. Like what? Like Pesach, for instance. On that night, the night of the Seder, we had to put the two bloods of the circumcision and of the lamb offering on the door to keep what? The mashchit from destroying. Okay? So there's always a thing to counter that. But in the end, we're not going to have anything. What are we going to have left? The fact that we had a covenant with God. That's it. That because we don't have anything to our merit. It doesn't matter. Even the greatest tzaddik today doesn't hold a candle to anything. As we can't come with our own righteousness because we have none. All right, so esh mitlakachat, like we said, this is charon af. It is written in Leviticus 10:2, and fire went forth before the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Who is this? Nadav and Avihu. Where did the fire come from? From within Oil Moed, from within the tent of meeting, the same place that Chema came out, the same place that Ketzef came out, and here we see charon af. Vatetze esh milifnei Hashem vatochalotam, and it consumed them. Vamutu lifnei Hashem. Same place, same angels. They're just coming out over here. It is not a question here that when Israel do not do the will of God, the fire of charon af is near. But when they do the will of God, the aspect of mercy encircles them, untouchable. Back to our text. Whenever Israel would sin, he would ascend and open his mouth to bite with a breath and to bite with his breath and destroy Israel. Therefore, his name was called, get this, Peor. Peor means to open wide. If you go to the dentist, you say, okay, tiftach ta pe pa'ur, open wide. That's what Peor means. So how did Moses get charon af, its massive house-sized pit, which he dug? How did he put him in the ground over there? What does our text say? When Moses called upon the name of God, he would lower him down beneath the earth. That's how he got him, not by might nor by power. It's never like that. This, of course, is the explicit name of God, which today we have no idea how to pronounce. So good luck with that. You try it. Don't worry, you'll pay the price. Not today, but you will. And even if we did, we would not be able to say it. Now let's read Job 40, 11 to 13 within this understanding. Okay, we're going back a little bit earlier from the verse that we gave before. Scatter your raging anger. See any haughty man and humble him. Hapetz evrot apecha. There's your af, right? Ure'e kol ge'e v'ashpilehu. See any haughty man and subdue him and crush the wicked in their place. Hide them in the dust together, bind up their faces in a hidden place. Tamnehem be'afar yachad, peneihem chevosh betamun, litmun. A matmon is a treasure, meaning it's buried and it's hidden. Tamun, barium. Okay? Just as it was, so it will be, as said in Psalms 20, verses 8 to 9. These trust in chariots and these in horses, but we mention the name of the Lord our God. B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu nazkir. They kneel and fall, but we rise and gain strength. The same thing that destroys the wicked, like we see in the book of Malachi. The same fire that will burn the wicked will heal the righteous. It is the same thing. So are they really angels of destruction, or this is God's judgment? This is God's judgment who act as angels of destruction, but the angels of destruction do not have permission to destroy if that permission is not granted. In other words, you need to give them a reason. When Moses died, what did the Holy One, blessed be he, do? He buried him opposite where Moses buried Charon Af. Moses buried Charon Af in the plot of the tribe of Gad, and God buried Moses opposite where Moses buried this angel of destruction. And just because Charon Af is buried under wraps for now, it does not mean that we cannot cause him to rise. However, our text continues and says, and whenever Israel would sin, he would open his mouth wide to bite with his spirit or with his breath and destroy Israel. In fact, we have proof of this from the book of Joshua, when the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, who are on the east side of the Jordan, where Charon Af is buried, and also where Moses is buried, they did something questionable. You could read this from Joshua chapter 22. They built a replica of the altar in the Mishkan. It says, and all the tribes heard of this, and they came with Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, and they came to confront them, say, what do you mean you're building an altar? The altar is in it. This is where the altar is. It's not over there. And they went through this whole thing. They gave an explanation and said, God forbid we would not come here to give offerings to God, but rather it is a sign between us and you. We are on the right side of the river. God put a river between us. So this is to remind us to go to the real altar. This is just a tribute, right? It's just a replica altar. That's all it was, for the sake of keeping God's commands. It was good. They're like, oh, bless you guys. And they walked away in peace. In other words, they did a good thing, right? However, before they explained their side, when they came to them, what did they say? When Israel and Joshua and Pinchas, when they came to them, from Joshua 22:17, what does it say? Is the iniquity of Peor too little for us, for which we have not been cleansed until this day? And there was a plague in the congregation of the Lord. Hame'at lanu et avon Peor asher lo yita'aranu mimeno ad hayom hazeh. We're not cleansed from this plague till this day. And if we weren't cleansed back then in the days of Moses and Joshua, you better believe we ain't cleansed today, right? Why is Moses buried over there? For exactly that reason. The iniquity of Peor, aka Charon Af, is in Beit Peor, the house that Moses built for this thing. As we learned, just because he is currently under wraps does not mean that judgment will not come to Israel in the form of a different angel of destruction, as we can see from the next verse, verse 18. And you will return away this day from following the Lord, and it will be, since you rebelled today against the Lord, that tomorrow he will be angry with you, with the whole congregation of Israel. What does the Hebrew say? Umachar el kol adat Israel iktsof. Here's Ketzef. Fine, so you buried one over here. What? Ketzef is still out there. He's going to come. Don't do this. If you awaken this one, then this one's going to come. Now, and we're reading from our text, now whenever Peor wishes to rise and destroy Israel, he sees the burial place of Moses before him, and he becomes afraid and retreats back to his place, as said in Deuteronomy 34:5 and 6. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab by the mouth of the Lord, because it was mouth to mouth. God gave him that kiss of death, right? And he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beit Peor, the house of Peor. And no person knows of a burial place until this very day. So this is something that the righteous actually do. We have seen many tzaddikim buried outside of the land of Israel, thereby holding evil at bay at a great cost to themselves. Another example of this, for instance, is the Marchu, Rav Chaim Vital, the student of the Ari, who basically, all the works that we have of the Ari, Rav Chaim Vital wrote them down. The Ari wrote like one or two sayings, but everything else was recorded by the Marchu. Recorded and then expounded upon the teachings of the Holy Ari. Marchu was his own writer he was good within his own right, but he received the Torah of the Ari. He chose to die where? He fled to Syria, and he chose to be buried in Syria outside of the borders of the land of Israel. He is buried opposite a massive place of impurity and idolatry called Beit Rimon. Okay, there's a place in Syria, there's an area called Beit Rimon, for the same reasons that Moses was buried opposite Peor. That's in the north. We know that judgment and evil comes from the north upon all the inhabitants of the land, like we read in Jeremiah, the inhabitants of the land of Israel. And the fact that we have a man that could have been Mashiach of his generation, oh yes, chose to be buried outside the land of Israel for the sake of Israel, will weaken the Sitra Achra. That's why he chose to be buried there. There's a reason that Israel is to be buried in the land of Israel, in the earth in Israel, because the land of Israel here is holy and pure, and it can purify the flesh. That's why we are buried here. That's why we bury our dead here, not in boxes, whereas we bury our dead outside the land of Israel in boxes, right? Why? Because the land outside, if Israel's a holy land, the land outside of Israel is unholy land. It is impure land. And when you put a body in impure land, it doesn't sanctify the body. But the land in Israel does. All right? Outside the land of Israel, we bury them in boxes. That's the difference. So essentially, to wrap up this entire series right now of the golden calf, we see taking responsibility at a great cost. Moses brought out the heir of Rav, and he vouched for them, all for the sake of God's glory. God didn't want him. Moses said, "I'm not. This is for you." But you can't say that Moses tried this alone. Joseph did the same thing back in Egypt, which is why he circumcised them all. You're not supposed to circumcise the Gentiles. For what reason? But he tried to do this for why? In order to bring out the holy sparks who were caught within the klippah. You have to kind of throw a wide net over there, and all the goodness that comes through, that's what we take, right? There's a reason it was Moses who personally also carried Joseph's coffin out of Egypt. He was the one that's uttered the words that Joseph said before he dies. Pakod ifkod Hashem etchem. Pakod pakadati etchem. He gave that secret code from Joseph, who started to try and do a redemption for the heir of Rav, to Moses, right? However, since the heir of Rav caused Israel to sin, as a result, the generation fell and could not enter into the land of Israel. It is only fitting that Moses, the faithful shepherd, the most faithful in all God's house, would remain with his people, God's people, outside of the Holy Land of Israel, the land which he spent his life preparing to enter, for no other reason than to fulfill the words of the Torah. Of him it is said in Isaiah 53, 53:6, "We all went astray like sheep. We have turned each one on his way, and the Lord accepted his prayers for the iniquity of us all." Like David said in Psalms 106:23, he intended to destroy them, and he would have if it not for Moses, his chosen one, stood before him in the breach to return his wrath from destroying. Lashiv chamato me'hashchit. Moses lived and died, time and time again, for Israel. From imprisonment and from judgment he is taken. As his generation, who shall tell? For he was cut off from the land of the living. He actually died. Because of the transgression of my people, a plague befell them. We just read this. As said in Exodus 32:32, "And now, if you forgive their sin, but if not, erase me now from your book, which you have written." Do you know what this means? It doesn't mean kill me. It means remove me from existence, from reality. If your name is not in the Torah, you are gone, because the Torah is all of reality. Remove me from reality, he said, for Israel. God promised Moses an eternal kingdom in his name and started the entire world over in his name. He would start everything over, like we said in the beginning. Forget them, I'm starting over with you. You deal? Game? No, not. They go, I go. As we know, if Israel are destroyed, the world is destroyed as well. So in other words, starting the whole world over again, starting from Moses. No, he said. So you see, Moses didn't just save Israel. And he gave his grave to the wicked. Oh yes, what does this mean? Out of all the people in the world, the first and last Redeemer of Israel, the one who fought and bested all the heavenly hosts, the one who whacked Satan across the face, the one who brought the Torah to the world, the one who God chose to do all these things, the most faithful of all servants, the master of all prophets, he wasn't going to be buried in Israel. He got buried like the wicked outside the land of Israel. Considering his position, he was buried like them, right? Outside of his place. From the toil of his soul, he would see. He would be satisfied with his knowledge. My servant would vindicate the just for many, and their iniquities he would bear. Beda'ato, his knowledge. Dat is the Sephirah that is exclusive to Moses, who had knowledge of God more so than any other created being. My servant would vindicate the just. My servant, says God here, also in Deuteronomy 34:5, and Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, impure lands, like where the wicked should be buried. And if you hear these verses that I'm reading from Isaiah 53, thinking about what, again, assuming you're here, hi, that we both know what you're thinking, and you're thinking that they don't apply to Moses, then you are definitely lost. From the book of Numbers 12:6-9, listen to the language. He said, please listen to my words, as God is speaking to Aaron and Miriam. If there be prophets among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known to him in a vision. I will speak to him in a dream. Not so my servant Moses. He is faithful throughout my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth in a vision. B'mar'eh. It's not, they keep saying vision. It's not like that in Hebrew. And not in riddles. And he beholds the image of the Lord. Moses, describe the image of the Lord. No image. See? But everybody else will come up with a certain image, won't they? So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? The wrath of the Lord flared against them and he left. Oh yes, what does it says? Vaychar af. Charon af. Adonai bam vayelech. Vayecharaf, by the merit of Moses, those who spoke ill of him are still alive and kicking for the simple fact that he is buried where he is still teaching us as Moshe Rabbeinu, our current rabbi, and still protecting us from complete annihilation, as said in Deuteronomy 34:6. And he buried him in the valley, in the land of Moab, opposite Beit Peor, and no person knows the place of his burial until this very day. Thus concludes the long journey down the mountain. It's a correction which takes place until this very day. And that's our class, chapter 45, and that was the golden calf. Next week, we'll start a whole new topic. We continue from Pirkei Devrei Eliezer. So in the meantime, thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.